Hey guys, and welcome back. I'm Saeed, a security engineer at Google and a certified Kubernetes enthusiast. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about logging. I'll talk about from a container scope or a pod scope. My source of reference is the one-stop shop for all Kubernetes security. If you don't know about it, now you do. Here you've got the Kubernomicon, which was actually created by my colleague Graham Helton, super smart guy. So definitely be plugging his information down below. I've recently collaborated on this as well from a defensive standpoint, because of course that's where my sort of speciality lies. Yeah, definitely check this out. Super interesting. It talks a lot about, immune builds right on top of uh the Microsoft threat matrix model, which is detailed right here. And it's pretty neat. It's in an MD book sort of style, so it's very engaging and interacting for anyone who's sort of not really documentation isn't really their thing. This is definitely taking a very different approach to your typical uh, documentation. Cool. So let's crack on. Without further ado, I'll quickly get into my pie. I've already got the deployment, or the actual config file, the YAML files ready. And from the top, I'll just quickly take you guys through this. So here we've got obviously a pod YAML file with the name simple web app, labels web app, standard, right? And then here you've got two containers, which is interesting. So if you're used to microservices, you know that you would probably have sidecar containers in your pods. Do excuse me. I think I'm coming down with something, but it's not going to stop us. So from our containers, we look at it from let's look at the first container. Here we've got the main application with the image nginx, pretty standard so far. The volume mount is shared logs, or it's named shared logs, but the mount path is specifically here, var log nginx. Pretty sure I got videos on mount paths and volume mounts explaining that. So if you haven't seen that, certainly check those out. But just on a very high level, volume mount and mount paths effectively, containers are typically, or yeah, they should be ephemeral. They should be short-lived. So they need locations in which they persist data, and that's where we effectively map the volumes from within a container to wherever we want to map them to. They could be, network file systems. They could be host paths for your virtual machine. They could be block storages on the cloud, so on and so forth. In this case here, we'll get into it in a moment. It's an empty dir, and I'll explain what that is in just a second. Excuse me. I'll just turn my alarm off so that doesn't happen again. Cool. Moving on to the second container, here we've got our sidecar container. This is what's interesting to us right now. It's of the image busybox. And here we can see from the command what exactly it does, the logic behind it. It's a shell command. It runs an infinite loop that constantly cats from that same, volume mount path, that var log nginx access.log, and it, keeps on doing that. Volume mount, again, same sort of location, and it's important that the name is also consistent between the volumes and volume mounts. So within this container, it will obviously have access to this, or it will be persisting payload to this location within the container, right? And then outside of that, we've gone for the empty dir. An empty dir is effectively an ephemeral volume. So it actually doesn't persist. So when we do delete the pod, as we'll see soon, it will effectively delete all of the payload that's within the containers, and thus the entire pod. And then we've got a service for our web app. Of course, if it is a web app, we need to obviously access it sort of externally. And here we've got our node port on port 80. And again, the name is just is sort of, like matches up. Cool. So we're happy with that. K apply -F. our sidecar container, and we'll just give that a minute to spin up. That's okay. That's fine. Cool. Okay, get. Oh, we'll just give it a moment to spin up. Okay, get. If I could get that out of the way. Okay, get pods -w. We'll just wait and watch. Once that simple web app is ready, we'll be able to sort of see. Oh, looks like it's ready. And you can see here 2 out of 2 ready. So that's 2 containers within the pod. Initially it was 1 out of 2. Sorry, 0 out of 2. Now it's 2 out of 2, and it's running. So we're happy with that. So just quickly back out of that. And I'm just going to open up Tmux. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stream the logs from the sidecar container. The reason being is because, of course, we've got logs for the pod, right? But we can also specify the logs for that specific container. So the idea is our sidecar container, right, will be outputting the entries, or all of the entries, from that access.log file, right, within that var/log directory. And if we want, of course, we can also, use that as our data source for our, say, Splunk, our SIEM, or wherever we want to effectively index that payload or that data. So if I head over up here to K, actually we'll stream it down here, K logs, right, from that simple web app, and we'll specify sidecar container. Okay, there's nothing in there at the moment, as expected. And let's quickly take a look just to specify it from the main app as well. Main application, just to see if we're on the right page here. And that's right. Because of course, here is all of the log entries for the main application, but that's not what we're looking at. We're looking for the sidecar container, and we're going to stream that. -F is going to allow us to stream that, so that the moment we get a new entry, we'll be able to see it live, right? So we need to effectively have an entry in that access.log file within that main application. But if we have no conditions that effectively will concatenate that or append that file, then we need to effectively trigger it ourselves, because this is obviously a test environment, right? We're just testing this out. So now if I exec into that pod, simple web app, right, and I then hit bash, specify the main application. Oh, maybe not the main application. Just get it in there. Let's get in there. Cool. So now we're in that root app, right? And if I hit ls, we know where we're going. We're going straight to that var. And then if we hit ls here, then we're going to go straight into log. And what we're looking for is we're effectively looking specifically for that nginx. So if we now cd into nginx and then ls, we should have that access.log file that we were talking about, if you remember from that config file, that pod config file. Okay, now if we have vim, I'm not sure if we do, but we'll see. We don't, so just quickly install vim. Just while that's installing, we could effectively, super quickly, I could show you guys that config file that we were just talking about a moment ago. And here is where I found, or where I got that. So that var log nginx access.log specifically, which is exactly where we are here. So we've gone into var, gone into log, the directories, gone into nginx, And then obviously we've got the access.log. So this is the conditional here for that sidecar container. It's picking up specifically from there, right? Okay, so it's not really liking that, which is fine, to be fair, because we could just append that that file. Let's close this off first. So we've just closed off that other terminal. So I'm just gonna echo and append into it. So echo hello. It is 7:26 a.m. This is a log entry to the sidecar. Great. So now if I append it into the access log, we're looking out for this section here. I'll give it a moment, because remember, it's every 5 seconds it should output. So now if I cat the access.log, we've got a new entry, and then hopefully that should sort of trickle into that sidecar container. There we go. And that sidecar container is just now, effectively, printed to screen as it should, every on sort of like a loop basis. So we should see another entry for that. It's constantly listening out for that access.log file within the main application, then printing it to screen. And we could do as we please with that, to be fair. We could, input that into our SIEM and effectively index through it. Obviously this is just a one-liner, but you can imagine how many log entries we'd have on an application, particularly if it's sitting as a gateway for any sort of further applications. So that's Sidecar Containers, right? And hopefully you guys that's a bit more clearer for you guys. So we can close this off.